I'd like to now call this Senate session to order. Today is first day, second special session, Thursday, July 8, 2021, approximately 10:05 a.m. With that, I request everyone to please stand for a moment of silence. This time the chair recognizes the clerk to call the roll.
Senator Cruz?
Here.
Senator Dilong Guerrero?
Here.
Senator Hopo?
Here.
Mr. President?
Jaggy.
Senator King Neighbors?
Present.
Senator Mangonia? Senator Kiruba? Senator Sablan?
Present.
Senator Santos? Mr. President, all 9 members are present.
We have nine members present. We have a quorum to conduct this session. This time on item B, under public comment. This is the portion of our session where we allow members of the general public that are here with us today to provide testimony on any of the items on the order, today's order of business. So at this time, the chair recognizes any member of the general public to present a testimony on any of the items before the Senate today. Sarge, can you please accompany the gentleman? And for the record, sir, please state your name. Thank you.
My name is Del Benson.
Okay, there we go. I'm Del Benson. I appreciate the chance to give public input. I appreciate this bill amendment coming forward. As a business owner, we carry a lot of burdens here in the CNMI. I've had no business for the past year and a half because of the shutdown. And so when we get hit with stiff fees and penalties, it's a huge burden. And sometimes I understand your role is you're trying to think, how can we get money for the CNMI coffers? Sometimes those are misplaced because of the burdens they put on those who provide much of the income to the CNMI from a local level. Businesses typically aren't voters, and so therefore they don't have a lot to say, and they get hit without being able to really address it. I know the chamber addressed this, and it still went forward. Basically, the consequence of this type of bill, when I got hit with the late fees, and I've been forgetting to get my annual report in, and this is what's prompted this. And fortunately, I was talking to the director, and he said, we better get in because the fees are going to be, there's a penalty. And I thought it would, okay. I didn't think it would cause me to go into coronary meltdown. And so I got it in the next morning and was hit. I mean, annual business license, I need to ask, so I don't go over time. What's the time limit?
Just proceed.
Okay.
Then, but before you were referring to what specific?
I can't remember the name of the bill. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, this bill. So the fees for annual reports in the past were 25, and then they're 50. Now they're 100. I think there's this fee schedule that we double everything every time we need money. And so I about choked. That's when I came over and started knocking on doors. Think of those who were hit with COVID that left island until things settled down and business started returning before they returned back to the island. How many of those coming from Korea or China are going to come and file any report and say they're assessed for each business $3,000 to $5,000 in penalties? How's that going to go over? What kind of consequences are we going to have? Does that say we're a friendly business environment? No, that is a front. And frankly, if I did that in my business, I wouldn't have business, but you're a government, you could do that. I mean, some of the people I talk to, I refer to it as extortion, because the amount of fee and penalty, this is not going to solve our financial woes in the CNMI. I know there's a great effort of how can we raise money. I would like to see a concerted effort to say, how can we cut costs? That's what businesses have to do. They have to cut costs to help settle the bottom line and to make more money. And sometimes you have to cut a lot of things off because you just can't do it. You guys should pass laws and, everybody has to do it without sometimes consequences. And I know you had some hearings on, I didn't ever hear about it. I don't read the newspaper much anymore. And so there are a lot of us who are not informed on what's going on. We don't know that something's always coming up. So I would also like to see added that there is a provision that you have some things, this can be retroactive. Because you will have, and I talked to an individual, he says, yeah, I went in, they told me I had all these fees. I went and started another business. We're gonna have consequences, so please consider, and I'm not in the chamber, so I don't really have the voice and I don't go there, but there's a lot of small business. I understand there's like 3,000 business licenses on the island. I mean, Tinian has maybe 75, and what costs to reduce it? Now I understand that there's a software program that's being introduced by Tyler, I don't know the name, Munis, that's going to hopefully put everything we can do online, and that will be a blessing, so I don't have to go in and stand in line. Because if you have been in business and you have to do a compliance, that's a lot of hours wasted going from a business perspective to comply with all the government regulations. And so this will be nice if a lot of this is streamlined and can help us that way to improve. Your goal should also be, how can you improve the climate for business? We don't have the demographics for strong business growth. We just don't have the numbers. I grew up in northern Utah, and the city that was the big one in the valley was called Logan. And when they hit the threshold of 50,000 people, all of a sudden other businesses started coming in. We don't have that luxury because we're an island.
Sir, and I would quickly ask.
Okay.
No, but it's perfect that you're raising this issue up, because the nominee for the Department of Commerce, the very agency that you're probably referring to, is.
Well, and I've visited with Mr. Guerrero regarding this, and I've had some calls. I've taken action on this because this hurts business, and I appreciate the hearing. I appreciate Senator Sablan for responding. And I'm going to close now. Thank you. So some of you know me, I know it can go on a long time, so I'll cut her off there. Thanks.
Mr. Marcy, Mr. Benson, the floor is still open for any member of our community to make testimony on any of the items in today's order of business. Thank you. Moving on to item C, reading and approval of the journal. Floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. And under item C, we have one Senate Journal 22-06, first special session dated May 18, 2021. Mr. President and members, I move for its adoption.
There's a motion for adoption of Senate Journal 22-06 as offered by Floor Leader Sablan and been seconded. Discussion. All those in favor of the motion to approve Senate Journal 22-06, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Senate Journal 22-06 adopted. At this point in time, the chair respectfully requests the members that we refer to item M, entitled Reports of Standing Committees, so as to allow the members to entertain the report from the Executive Appointments and Governmental Investigation, reporting on the appointment of Mr. Edward M. De Leon Guerrero to serve as Secretary of Commerce, and the EAGI report appointment of Mr. Isidro K. Seaman for CA Board of Directors representing the 3rd Territorial District. So the chair now would like to recognize the floor leader, Senator Sablan, for the appropriate motion on item number 1.
Thank you, Mr. President. And under item M, reports of standing committees, Our first standing committee report is standing committee report number 22-16 from your Committee on Executive Appointments and Government Investigations, reporting on the executive appointment of Mr. Edward M. De Leon Guerrero to serve as the Secretary of the Department of Commerce. Mr. President and members, I move for its adoption.
Motion offered by the floor leader for the adoption of Standing Committee Report 22-16 as reported by the floor leader and has been seconded. Discussion? Under discussion, the chair recognizes the chairman of the Committee on Executive Appointment and Government Investigation, Senator Cruz.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, your Committee on Executive Appointment and Investigation is ready to present Standing Committee Report number 22-16. And this is the executive appointment of Mr. Edward M. De Leon Guerrero to serve as the Secretary of the Department of Commerce. Mr. President, your Committee on Executive Appointments and Investigation, to which was referred the executive appointment of Mr. Edward M. De Leon Guerrero to serve as the Secretary of the Department of Commerce, begs these to report as follows. After review and consideration of testimonies provided, your committee recommends the confirmation of Mr. De Leon Guerrero's executive appointment to serve as the Secretary of the Department of Commerce. Pursuant to Article 3, Section 14 of the NMI Constitution and the CNMI or 1 CMC, subsection 2452, it is the duty and purpose of your committee to report to the Senate for legislative action pertaining to the executive appointment of Mr. Edward M. De Leon Guerrero to serve as the Secretary of the Department of Commerce. The committee has examined all pertinent documents relating to the executive appointment of Mr. De Leon Guerrero's overall credentials to serve as the Secretary of the Department of Commerce. And in summation, all written and oral testimonies provided to the committee, there are 12 written testimonies in support of the appointee, 14 oral testimonies in support of the appointee, of which 3 hard copies of the testimony stated were submitted on the date of the hearing, and no written or oral testimonies in opposition of the appointee. Your committee further finds that several recommendation issues and concerns were brought to the attention of the appointee, of which have been included in this report, respective to the public hearing conducted. The required action on the part of the appointee is to provide an official update on the status of these matters raised within 90 days after confirmation by the Senate to serve as the Secretary of the Department of Commerce. Therefore, based on the overall assessment of Mr. De Leon Guerrero's credentials, experiences, testimonies, goals for the agency, and other relevant issues considered, your committee is convinced that Mr. De Leon Guerrero has the qualifications and leadership skills necessary to serve as the Secretary of the Department of Commerce. The hearing was conducted on May 20 at the Mayor's Office of Rona Conference Room in Tapatsu, Florida, and on May 27, 2021 at Tinian Courthouse, San Jose, Tinian, and on June 4, 2021, here in Senate Chamber, Honorable Sus P. Mahanas Memorial Building, here in Capitol Hill, Saipan. Recommendations, issues, and concerns were raised for the appointee to address after being confirmed. And in conclusion, all required documents in conformance with Article 3, Section 14 of the NMI Constitution and 1 CMC subsection 2452 have been submitted to your committee for review and consideration. And based on the submission of pertinent documents and testimonies, your committee concludes that executive appointment of Mr. Edward M. De Leon Guerrero to serve as the Secretary of the Department of Commerce is in accordance with Article 3, Section 14 of the NMI Constitution and 1 CMC subsection 2452. Therefore, your committee consents to the confirmation of Mr. Edward M. De Leon Guerrero to serve as the Secretary of the Department of Commerce. So I ask the full body of this Senate to please support Standing Committee Report number 22-60. Thank you, Mr. President.
Jesus Marcy, Senator Cruz, any other member? Recognize Senator Teresita Santos.
Thank you, Mr. President. Acting Secretary Guerrero, I'm not a member of the EAGI. However, I have read your mission summary, which outlines 5 key plans and goals. And for each plan and goal, you expound your approach to accomplish the same. I have also read the committee report that consolidated what transpired during the public hearing on all the 3 senatorial districts, and I was particularly impressed with the question and answer portion. Your responses to the questions were on point, they were reasonable and acceptable. There were, however, some issues and concerns that were raised. However, we are confident that you will be able to address them in time. All of the written and oral testimonies, as indicated by our good chair of EAGI, presented were in favor of your nomination. I had the opportunity for your information to visit our Department of Commerce Rhoda, and I spoke to our resident director there, including his staff, and they highly spoke about your leadership. You initiated an open line of communication with our local departments and building a healthy work relationship and knowing about your extensive public service. And so we ask that you continue to foster that working relationship and make time to periodically visit our local offices so that we will be all on the same page. With that, I yield for now, Mr. President. Thank you.
Jesus Marcy, Senator Santos, any other member? Recognize Senator Edith de Leon Guerrero.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm just reading now the committee report, and thus far, I guess all of the comments and recommendations and responses from the incoming nominee, the Secretary of Commerce, is good. My only concern, really, it has been a long time conversation within the CNMI state regarding the American Community Survey that we don't do here in the Commonwealth. And the reason why I bring that issue up is because the latest data, if I'm not mistaken, that we could look at is from the Prevailing Wage Survey report. But if we become part of the American Community Survey collection of data on a frequent basis, I truly believe that it can help us make much more sound decisions in the interest of our Commonwealth and its people. So I really do look forward for a much more open and candid conversation with the Census Bureau of the United States government so that we can become a part of the American Community Survey. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator de Leon Guerrero. Any further comment? Recognize Senator Vic Funko.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I know that the nominee, Mr. Edward Guerrero, have went through a long journey for his confirmation, hopefully in today's session. And I must applaud Mr. Chairman that I guess this is the most detailed mission statement of any nominee to provide the members of this body his action plan when he's confirmed, and to begin expeditiously doing all this mission plan. And I hope that in every mission plan that he stated during his testimony, that this body will be informed as to the status of this mission statement of undertaking this critical department, and most especially we just heard the gentleman today, Mr. Benson, his concern, and I would like to again emphasize that the Department of Commerce must engage with its division to ensure and meet with our business community and ensure discussion on what the business community are experiencing hardship, and what are these business community that will work with the Department of Commerce to ensure that the business will grow and provide us with more opportunity rather than to be discouragement of any business opportunity that is forthcoming into the Commonwealth, be it Rhoda, Saipan, and Tinian. And as Mr. Guerrero stated during his public hearing, that he will keep close touch with his subsidiary office and counterpart, most especially to the senatorial Rhoda and Tinian. I'm very hopeful that this will be realized, and those subsidiary office in Rhoda and Tinian will be ensured with more training or opportunity that will provide their senatorial business community the opportunity also to be well informed of any new ideas or any issue that are being experienced as difficulty in running their business. And I have put my full faith that with his Mr. Guerrero mission statement that he will accomplish maybe 90%, if not 100%, during his tenure as the new Secretary of the Department of Commerce. So with this, Mr. President and members, I must applaud the vision, the mission statement of what we are looking before us, of what Mr. Guerrero will expeditiously do upon his confirmation by this body. Thank you.
Mr. Swansea, Senator Victor Hoco, any other member? We call the roll. But I would like to just say just a couple of few words here to the nominee. And there's no question the qualifications is you have a vast experience, secretary nominee, and when you're in the CNMI, then you would understand the experience that Mr. De Leon Guerrero had ensued over in his previous years from several sectors in our government, whether it's autonomous line agencies, and now accepting the nomination. And had a chance to discuss with him several of his plans, and also memorializing some of the successes and challenges in other agencies. And the chair is confident that with his acceptance as a nominee for Secretary of Commerce, that he will do his best, nevertheless, with the challenges before us. There's a 22-01 is the new public law creating CEDA, and ironically, coincidentally, one of our nominees here too this morning, and I couldn't overemphasize the need to continue that seamless discussion amongst the agencies so that we can craft our way or weave our way how to recover, or even how to approach this in the next couple of years, because it's going to be tough for the CNMI. But I trust that with your expertise and your experience and your diplomatic approach on matters before your agency and your support staff, especially your key staff in your department, about that support. The chair is confident in that regard. But I also, before I call the roll, I ask that you stay back even if you have the confirmation, and we will conduct a short recess for an opportunity to congratulate you, okay? So that's. Any other?
Yes, Mr. President, can we allow the appointed to comment before?
Absolutely. No objection, Sarge, the new company. Secretary nominee. My apologies, the chair forgot to ask you to come up, both, even Mr. Sem. The hearing is done. So with that, Chairman Cruz, I'm gonna call the
Thank you, sir.
Citizens Mossy Chair. At this time, the chair requests the clerk to please call the roll for the adoption of Standing Committee Report number 22-16. And please go ahead, clerk.
Senator Cruz,
Yes.
Senator De Leon Guerrero,
Yes.
Senator Hope,
Yes.
Senator King Neighbors,
Yes.
Senator Mangonia,
Yes.
Senator Quirigua, Senator Sablan,
Okay.
Senator Santos. Mr. President,
Hungyan,
Mr. President, all 9 members voting yes.
with 9 members voting yes, Standing Committee Report number 22-16 hereby adopted, therefore confirming the appointment of Mr. Edward M. De Leon Guerrero to serve as the Secretary of Department of Commerce. Thank you. At this time, the chair recognizes Senator, the floor leader, Senator Sablan, for the appropriate motion for Standing Committee Report number 22-22.
Thank you, Mr. President. And our next Standing Committee report for action is Standing Committee Report number 22-22 from your committee on executive appointments and government investigations, reporting on the executive appointment of Mr. Isidro K. Semen to serve on the Commonwealth Economic Development Authority Board of Directors to represent the 3rd Senatorial District. Mr. President and members, I move for its adoption.
Motion for the adoption being offered by the floor leader on Standing Committee Report number 22-22 from the Committee on EAGI, reporting on the appointment of Mr. Isidro K. Semen. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded. Discussion. Under discussion, the chair recognizes the chairman for the EAGI, Senator Cruz.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, this is the last Standing Committee report. The executive appointment and the investigation is ready to present. And this is Committee Report number 22-22. This is the executive appointment of Mr. Isidro K. Semen to serve as a member of the Commonwealth Economic Development Authority Board of Directors, representing the 3rd Senatorial District, Saipan. Mr. President, your Committee on Executive Appointments and Investigation, to which was referred the appointment of Mr. Isidro K. Semen to serve as a member of the Commonwealth Economic Development Authority Board of Directors, begs leave to report as follows. After review and consideration of testimonies provided, your committee recommends the confirmation of Mr. Isidro K. Semen to serve as a member of the Economic Development Authority Board of Directors to represent the 3rd Senatorial District, Saipan. Pursuant to 8 Section 5 of the Official Rules of the Senate, it is the duty and purpose of your committee to report to the Senate for legislative action pertaining to the executive appointment of Mr. Semen's executive appointment to serve as a member of the Commonwealth Economic Development Authority Board of Directors to represent the 3rd Senatorial District. Your committee has examined all pertinent documents relating to the executive appointment of Mr. Semen's overall credentials to serve as a member of the Board of Directors of the Commonwealth Economic Development Authority. And in summation of all written and oral testimonies provided to the committee, there are 3 written testimonies in support of the appointee, of which 1 written testimony was officially received during the public hearing, and 2 written testimonies in support of the appointee were submitted prior to the hearing, and no written or oral testimonies in support or opposition of the appointment. Additionally, your committee stated several recommendation issues and concerns to the appointee, that are included in this report. And based on the overall assessment of Mr. Semen's credentials, experiences, testimonies, goals for the agency, and other relevant issues considered, your committee is convinced that Mr. Semen has the qualifications and leadership skills necessary to serve as a member of Board of Directors of the Commonwealth Economic Development Authority. The public hearing was conducted on June 18, 2021, here at the Senate Chamber of the Honorable Sus P. Mafnas Memorial Building here in Capitol Hill, Saipan. And during the hearing, certain recommendations, issues, and concerns were raised for the appointee to address and look into when confirmed as a board member. In conclusion, all required documents in conformance with Rule 8, Section 5 of Official Rules of the Senate have been submitted to your committee for review and consideration. And based on the submission of pertinent documents and testimonies, your committee concludes that the appointment of Mr. Sido K. Semen to serve as a member of the Board of Directors of the Commonwealth Economic Development Authority is in accordance with 4 CMC subsection 8131A. Therefore, your committee consents to the confirmation of Mr. Sido K. Semen to serve as a member of the Commonwealth Development Authority Board of Directors to represent the 3rd Senatorial District Segment. I ask the full body of the Senate to please consider and support Standing Committee Report number 22-22. Mr. President, at the same time, I would like to ask the clerk to please make correction on some of the missing words on Commonwealth, instead of CDA, Commonwealth Economic Development Authority, to include the economic on all pages that are missing on this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Cruz. Clerk, please make note of that. Any other member? I recognize Senator Leon Guerrero.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, Mr. Sid Semen. It's been a long time. We've worked together for many years, and I truly do know your desire to make it better for our Commonwealth. I'm reading through your testimony, and I'm glad you mentioned about data being the driving force to make decisions, and definitely it also helps businesses that are looking from the outside into the Commonwealth with respect to whether this is a market that they want to invest their monies in. And your role on the CEDA board is actually very critical. I'm not too sure how current is the business handbook guidance for investors. I would recommend and highly encourage that be kept current in conjunction and collaboration with the Department of Commerce. That's one particular document that investors do look into with respect to the CNMI market. I'm especially interested in your statements. You talked about IBM being the leading, I'm not too sure what was the discussion on this, but it seems like, is that the technology that's being used to drive the decision on food security? And earlier, Mr. Dale Benson mentioned about Tyler software that is being implemented CNMI-wide. That's Tyler Technologies, by the way, listed on the New York Stock Exchange. It's a $1 billion corporation. So I was wondering whether when you get confirmed and you sit on the CEDA board, if CEDA would be part of that particular infrastructure CNMI-wide with respect to the necessity for CEDA to get into the data information. So that is something I would highly encourage to look into. And on my last comment on your confirmation would be, I'm a very strong proponent of entrepreneurship. In any state economy across the country, a lot of people are jump-starting their businesses so that they can become self-sufficient. I really look forward into seeing more of our people locally get into small businesses so that they can create their own income and not so much depend on government employment. I look forward to CEDA being a much more proactive unit of government in our society so that we see more outcomes with respect to young, middle, and older generations getting into businesses. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Edith Leon Guerrero. Any other member? Senator Santos.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, former Director of OPM, Mr. Semen. I have read the committee report that was prepared for your confirmation today, including your opening statement, written testimonies, all expressing the full support on your nomination to serve as a member to the CDA board. During your public hearing, there were issues and concerns raised. However, in your opening statement, you have indicated that CDA must be given with the proper tools in order for CDA to effectively carry out its mandates. And you further indicated that given what it needs to work, CDA can and will play a pivotal role in shifting our economy into other industries relevant and trending in today's global economy. I highly admire your statement in that opening statement. And so you went to what's this further indicate that you possess the necessary skills to help you effectively performing your duties and responsibilities as a member to the CDA board. We trust that you do possess the necessary skills, creativity, and leadership, as you have ample work experiences in both the governmental and private sector. We also appreciate your acceptance to serve as a CDA board, and we thank you for and we recognize you for everything that you have done, to the CNMI when you served as a director for OPM. And with that, I yield for now, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Santos. Being no other further comment, clerk, can you please call the roll for the adoption of Standing Committee Report number 22-22?
Senator Cruz,
Yes.
Senator Dino Guerrero,
Yes.
Senator Hoco,
Okay.
Senator Kim Neighbors,
Yes.
Senator Mangonia,
Yes.
Senator Kirwa,
Okay.
Senator Sablan,
Okay.
Senator Santos, Mr. President,
Okay.
Mr. President, all 9 members voting yes.
With 9 members voting yes, Standing Committee Report number 22-22 is hereby adopted. Therefore, confirming the nomination of Mr. Isidro K. Semen to the CDEA Board of Directors. CEDA, sorry, I'm still trying to. CEDA, Commonwealth Economic Development Authority Board of Directors, Representative Senatorial District. That, congratulations, and Chair would like to call for short recess. Thank you.
Salamat kagandun gini lo
Thank you for that correction,
Yeah.
Mr. President.
DCC.
Yeah.
Yeah. May I ask the members and the nominees to please come up? Por favor, like.
Yeah. Discuss the EGI
Yes, the honor, please.
Yes.
Right on.
Senator Villamoro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a comment on Governor Message number 2247 and also on Governor's Message 2253 on raising the salaries of certain individuals from their current salary, one for up to 80,000 per annum, the other from 65,000 to 75,000 per annum. In reviewing the governor's message, there is a specific mentioning of a certain section of the statute with respect to exemptions. And I took some time to do my own personal research, considering I'm a new senator that's elected by the people of Saipan. And even with everything that's happening in our community with the ARPA money and the ongoing budget deliberation, currently listening into the department heads' testimonies or conversations with the Ways and Means at the House level. And then we talked about, the WGI with the government employees and the merit increases. And we all know that a lot of that is simply a simple step moving forward at 5% for WGI and 5% for merit increases. Yesterday's testimony with OPM Director Franny Salas talks about it's not retro, that a lot of the WGI are only going to begin at the time period when the austerity was lifted, whatever that time period was moving forward. And the reason why I raised this issue is because the extreme difference between 65,000 to 70,000, for example, and from 165,000 to 80,000 is substantial. That is a lot of money for a lot of people. On a mere 5% increase of a government employee, I am especially concerned. And with respect to the statute being mentioned by the governor's message to the legislature, specifically it says Title I Government, Division 8 Public Employment, subsections 8250 exemptions. 8250C is the exact citation of those particular letters, and it talks about if the governor certifies to the presiding officers of the legislature and the chairman of the Civil Service Commission that, after a diligent effort, that's the word, and that is the phrase, after diligent effort. I've reviewed the OPM's website looking for these particular positions, if there's any job vacancy announcements, to open it up for competition. Because I'm sure there are other interested individuals in these positions. And I did not see any announcements. So I am a little bit concerned, actually very much concerned, that the after a diligent effort portion of the statute is being ignored. I encourage this body that we have to be much more diligent in our pursuit of fairness and equality in employment opportunities for people, because we do have a lot of individuals in the technology sector. Power technology is one infrastructure that is currently being spent a lot of money by the CNMI government. And there are a lot of people out there that carry some certifications or a lot of certifications in network systems and infrastructure development. And this is the reason why I raise this concern, because we are not really opening up the opportunity, but simply just stamping approval for somebody to be getting such a substantial amount of increase in income. Yet the government employees are not getting a retro of WGI. So this is the reason why, Mr. President, I bring this concern. Thank you very much.
I just want to see Senator Villamoro. Senator Santos.
Thank you, Mr. President. But before I make any comments under the governor's messages, I'd like to make a correction to my earlier remarks under the confirmation of Mr. Sid Seman that he was appointed to serve as the member of CEDA and not CDN. I would like the record to reflect that correction. And so this is in reference to governor's messages number 2256, 57, and 58. I applaud our governor and lieutenant governor for their confidence by reappointing these three individuals, Mr. Furman and Actinic Polly Dilongura Mosca, Corinne H. Santos, to serve as members of the CHC Board of Trustees. And in the same way, Mr. President, I'd like to thank you also for expeditiously referring their reappointments to the chairman of EAGI for the confirmation process. As some of us may know, prior to the expiration of the terms of these three individuals, they have completed a 5-year plan for CHCC. However, they have yet to review and adopt the 5-year plan due to the lack of quorum. And in that respect, a quorum is also required to conduct credentialing of some physicians applying at CHCC. And so we ask our good chairman on EAGI to facilitate their confirmation process so the Board of Trustees can conduct business at the soonest. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Santos. Recognized, Senator Malone.
Thank you, Mr. President. Following up with the concern raised by our good Senator De Leon Guerrero, Mr. President, I wonder if I'm out of order in requesting our legal counsel to look into this requirement of informing the legislature whenever there is an excess in the salary that is being offered to a government employee, especially with regards to the criteria and the law surrounding this requirement. I think that Senator Ido made a good point here, and it appears like we get this regularly, almost every session under messages from the governor, and we feel like it is just to inform us and how do we go about this in the future? Do we ask our staff or our council to get a box and check mark all the boxes as to whether, or refer to the committee so that we make sure that all the boxes are checked as far as the requirement under the law. I agree that one key requirement that we have to emphasize is since we're talking about the salary and we're trying to justify the need to increase the salary, is that we put a public notice out so that people out there that are qualified, especially, we have a lot of qualified individuals in the mainland, and they might want to apply. So this is something that maybe the committee or our legal counsel can, every time we get these governor's messages, take out a checklist and mark all the boxes so that we are all well aware as to the requirement. It's just small thing, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Malone. Any other member? Senator Cruz?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Just to extend appreciation on behalf of the people of Kenya to the administration for signing House Bill number 22-4, draft 1, and it became Kenyan local law number 22-0. For signing that law. And also in regards to the renomination or appointment from the administration, a fiducious public hearing on the renomination of those individuals. Absence the required document by this body, Mr. President, and I've been raising this in the past, that absent required documents to be submitted to your committee on executive appointment. We cannot schedule a public hearing. So again, I would like to continue to inform the administration staff that are in charge with all appointments that are needed to the Senate to inform appointees that are being either appointed or re-nominated to specifically submit the required documents in order for this committee to pursue or schedule a public hearing for their reappointment or new appointment. Thank you, Mr. President.
This is my seat, Chairman Cruz. Well articulated on the procedure. Moving to our next order of business, communications from the judiciary.
None, Mr. President.
Communications from the heads
We have 3 on our
of the
agenda.
executive department. We have 3. Any discussion? Senator Santos, recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. And this is in regards to Department Message number 2216. I'd just like to thank our Secretary of Finance for his letter of June 11, 2021, which letter provided further guidance with regards to the utilization of the American Rescue Plan Act funds. In the Secretary of Finance letter, he provided further clarification in 3 specific areas such as expenditure authority, use of ARPA funds, and reporting requirements. The Secretary of the Finance letter is of vital importance to us, the legislature, as we are also recipients of these ARPA funds. And with that, again, I'd just like to thank our Secretary of Finance for providing further guidance and clarification for the use of those ARPA funds. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Santos. Senator Villanueva.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to make a comment under this particular section, Department Message number 2215. I did review the annual report, and I'm sure that a lot of the members in this body and even the community is aware that there is a set of documentations that are going around with respect to public land ownership that may take us as way back in time during the TT time, before the CNMI became a covenant in relation with the United States government. And the reason why I raise this issue is because it brings me to the question of how much of our land valuation with respect to public lands do we own? And these properties that are in question right now, that some members perhaps have a copy of those particular land documentations with respect to the churches of the Commonwealth. And these are premium properties. I am especially concerned because when we look into the Constitution, it talks about land valuation, and a certain percentage of that land valuation of the Commonwealth that the government could go out in the open market and seek funding from sources of investments, for example, floating a bond. I think it's important that moving forward in today's session that we address this issue once and for all and encourage the Department of Public Lands to look into the matter and to have an open conversation with this body so that we can know for sure whether we own those public lands that are being circulated on social media and being discussed publicly in the open with respect to the ownership of the churches. We have to remind ourselves that this is not about religion. This talks about the separation of church and state. We have to remind ourselves that when we look at this matter, we have to look at it in that perspective. And also in the perspective of the CNMI Constitution of how much truly do we own with respect to public lands. And I am especially concerned because I represent the island of Saipan, elected by the people of Saipan as a senator, and a lot of these properties are on the island of Saipan. And collectively, as the CNMI state, we need to know. We talk about financial issues. We for a fact as a government, we have outstanding bonds out there that we are still paying for. And if we are operating on a land valuation that we don't even know if these properties are included in those land valuation calculations, we may perhaps be in violation of our very own Constitution. And these are the reasons why I raise these issues today, so that we need to look into it once and for all. And we need to work with perhaps maybe the Attorney General's office to go back in time and see whether we still have rights with respect to these properties, if there is. And if not, then we ought to have some kind of, we need to be concerned, because if these public lands are being held as liens to settle a huge case right now, which we're all fully aware of, regarding the church in Agana, Guam, right? We need to be concerned because it does affect our people. Thank you, Mr. President.
Since Senator Villanueva, I'm certain that the chairman of EAGI is making note of those comments. This reason why I said that, because before us is the nominee for DPL. Senate. Any other? Senator Victor Hoco, recognized.
Well, I guess the concern stated by Senator Guerrero, De Leon Guerrero, have merit, and we've been discussing this alongside. And just for information of everybody, we are now working with the acting DPL director, secretary, to engage into those issues to ensure that the status of all this from the past will be accounted, or will come up with a documentation as to its present states, whether the church own these places or not. So I understand that the acting secretary for DPL will work on those concerns, and will report that to the body once he is confirmed. I know that he's got a lot of issues before him requested by the members of the committee, and that is one that I also inquire of him to seriously look into those areas, as we really don't know the present status of all those public land extended. In the matter of, in the state public land in Rhoda regarding the church, I am not quite sure who actually also own those areas that are being utilized both by the public and the church activity. And we like to ensure also, if we are to provide infrastructure funding for development, then we should know the boundary of our authority, or whether we can improve or not. So I guess the acting secretary of DPL is seriously looking into those kind of issues. So, and I can share that concern from Senator Guerrero. Thank you.
Jesus Masia, Senator Victor Hoco, and I appreciate the conversation. I do want to, with respect to some of the members' requests for some time sensitivity schedule, we would like to move ahead as soon as quickly as possible. Thank you for your understanding. So with that, moving on to communications from the House, item G. Clerk.
Yes, Mr. President, we have 16 on our agenda, 22-22 to 37.
This time the chair recognizes Furley Sablan to focus on item number 1 with respect to House Communication 22-22. And further.
Thank you, Mr. President. And yes, we are now on item G, communications from the House. There are 2 communications that are for action by this body. And at this point, the first communication is House Communication number 22-22, returning with amendments Senate Bill number 22-29, HD1, to authorize government agencies, boards, and commissions to promulgate regulations to utilize electronic means to participate in official meetings. Mr. President and members, I move to accept the amendments from the House in the form of HD1.
Second.
With the appropriate motion offered for the acceptance of House Communication 22-22, reporting on Senate Bill number 22-29 in the form of HD1, and it's been seconded. And just for consistency, once the members accept this, that constitutes passage of the legislation. Correct? So with that,
Mr. President,
go ahead, Senator Hope.
if I may ask to assure for certainty that maybe the chair can request for a roll call on this.
as well.
Not a problem. So roll call on this, clerk, please call the roll for the acceptance of House Bill or House Communication 22-22 as stated by the floor leader. Please call the
Senator
roll.
Cruz,
Yes.
Senator De Leon Guerrero,
Yes.
Senator Hoku,
Again,
Senator King Neighbors,
Yes.
Senator Maloney, Senator Kirua, Senator Sablan,
Again.
Senator Santos, Mr. President,
Again,
Mr. President, all 9 members voting yes.
with 9 members voting yes, House Communication number 22-22 is hereby accepted by the Senate. Therefore, passing the latest version of Senate Bill number 22-29 in the form of HD1. Thank you. Floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our second House Communication for action from this body is House Communication number 22-31, returning with amendments Senate Bill number 22-40 to protect the people of the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands from per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, PFAS contamination. Mr. President and members, I move to accept the amendments from the House in the form of HD1.
second.
Been a motion offered by floor leader for the acceptance of House Communication 22-31, reporting on Senate Bill number 22-40, and it's been seconded. Discussion. And again, the clerk, I recognize the clerk for the call roll.
Senator Cruz,
Yes.
Senator De Leon Guerrero,
Yes.
Senator Hoku,
Again,
Senator King Neighbors,
Yes.
Senator Maloney, Senator Kirua, Senator Sablan,
Again.
Senator Santos, Mr. President,
Again,
Mr. President, all 9 members voting yes.
with 9 members voting yes, House Communication number 22-31 is by accepted and passed by the Senate. Therefore, therefore passing Senate Bill number 22-40 in the form of HD1. Thank you. Any other items? There being none? Any comments from any other House Communication? None? Communications from the Senate?
Mr. President, we have 12 on our agenda also, 22-32 to 43.
Communications from Washington delegate?
We have one, Mr. President, 2202, regarding supporting the renomination of the Honorable Ramona de la Gomez Longoria to serve as Chief Judge of the U.S. District Court of the NML.
Any comments? Unfinished business?
None.
Pre-filed bills, initiative, local bills, and resolutions? And at this time, the chair recognizes the item number 1 under item K. Recognize Senator Edith De Leon Guerrero.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to formally introduce some of my bills and legislation in the Senate session. Senate Bill number 22-53 to prohibit the purchase of leased vehicles paid by public funds by elected officials, but allow an exemption for a government agency to purchase the leased vehicles strictly for the agency's use. Under Senate Bill number 2254 to amend 2 CMC subsection 7221E to allow more time to take action on the governor's appointment to the zoning board. Under Senate Bill number 2255 to amend 1 CMC subsection 1301 to remove the majority vote requirement prior to the issuance of subpoena and for other purposes. Under Senate Resolution number 2210, urging the Honorable Governor Ralph De Leon Guerrero Torres to reserve Commonwealth funds to provide a retiree bonus or COLA to be distributed equally to all settlement class members and CNMI fund members receiving an annuity. Under Senate Bill number 2256 to amend 1 CMC subsections 8459A and 8460A to require employers to contribute 4% of an employee's compensation if an employee contributes at least 4% to the employee's defined contribution plan individual account and for other purposes. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Villarreal. I will now recognize the Vice President, Senator Kidwell.
Jesus Marcy, Mr. President. Mr. President, publicly introducing Senate Legislative Initiative number 22-09 to amend Article 11, Section 5G of the Constitution of the Northern Mariana Islands to clarify that the Department of Public Lands shall receive all monies, including rentals, fees, penalties, and monies from court judgments, to provide for reasonable expenses by law, to authorize homestead infrastructure expenses, to require the legislature to approve and appropriate DPL's annual budget, and to prohibit the reprogramming of DPL's revenues. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Vice President Kidwell. The Chair recognizes Senator Lee, the floor leader, Senator Lee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Formally introducing Senate Local Bill number 22-09 to amend the Saipan official zoning map sheets 23 of 29 to rezone certain districts to mixed commercial and for other purposes. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Under item L, introduction of bills, initiatives, local bills, and resolutions. And the Chair recognizes floor leader Simon.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, I'd like to introduce Senate Bill number 22-57, a bill for an act to amend 4 CMC subsection 4205 to remove the daily penalty fees imposed on late filing and annual reports and for other purposes. Thank you, Mr. President.
Any other members? None. Item M, reports of standing committees. And at this time, the Chair would like to start with item number 2. Floor leader.
Mr. President, if there's no objections, I'd like to start off with the initiatives, and then we'll move on to the bills that are on the reports of standing committees. So,
No objection, go for it.
so our first standing committee report for adoption, Mr. President and members, is standing committee report number 22-20 from the Committee on Judiciary, Government and Law, Federal Relations, reporting on Senate Legislative Initiative number 22-04 to propose a constitutional amendment to Article 10, Section 2 of the NMI Constitution to require the government to provide a report on the social, fiscal, and economic impact of tax exemptions. Mr. President, I move for its adoption.
There's a motion offered by the floor leader for the adoption of standing committee report number 22-20. Do we hear a second to that motion?
Second.
Seconded, under discussion. Any discussion? All those? Right. All those in favor of the adoption to adopt standing committee report number 22-20, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Standing committee report number 22-20 is hereby adopted. Floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. And our next standing committee report for adoption is standing committee report number 22-21 from the Committee on Resource, Economic Development and Programs, reporting on Senate Legislative Initiative number 22-01 to amend Article 12 of the Constitution of the Northern Mariana Islands to remove the restriction on the alienation of land in the CNMI to allow for NMD landowners to fully exercise their real property rights and to reduce the NMD percentage of ownership interest in Northern Mariana's Descent Corporation. Recommended to be filed. Mr. President, members, and move for its adoption.
So offered by the floor leader for the adoption of standing committee report 22-21. Do we hear a second?
Second.
Seconded, under discussion. The chair recognizes the chair for the RADP committee, Vice President Rutu Tutuba.
I just want to see that, Mr. President. Mr. President, Senate Legislative Initiative 22-01 was referred to your Committee on Resources, Economic Development and Programs. And the committee conducted public hearings from RORA on March 25th, 2021, Cyclone April training 2021, and TNIAN May 6, 2021, to provide our people an opportunity to be present and express their testimonies on the said legislative initiative. Based on the testimonies presented during the public hearings and those that were submitted in writing, the testimonies of non-support were overwhelming in TNIAN and in Saipan. And further, Mr. President, the author of the proposed legislative initiative, which is the Senate President Jude Snyder, requested the Committee on Resources, Economic Development and Programs to file Senate Legislative Initiative 20-01 during the Senate session conducted on May 18, 2021. So with the aforesaid reasons, the committee made the decision to file Senate Legislative Initiative 22-01 to this motion, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. Any other member? Senator Hope, recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to make a statement regarding this initiative that you have authored, to let you know that I am very proud for your time to really introduce this, to not necessary that the members of the Senate will take this very lightly, but I must applaud you. I must applaud you for bringing this matter before the people and your committee to ensure that we wake them up about the situation of Article 12. There are in the past proponents that have wanted also to amend Article 12 to provide more opportunity to business entrepreneurs. Unfortunately, it is of no avail also to consider that. But after 20-some years of non-visitation of this particular article, it is good, and I must applaud you for taking the step to, put out a wake-up call to our people to ensure that whether or not they would like to change otherwise, or continue to maintain the sanctity of Article 12. And your committee members are not negligent or are not negligent to ensure the wisdom of the people after going to different senatorial for a public hearing. There are people out there that supported the initiative, and it is the committee's regret that, to tell you, Mr. President, that being an author of this body, to inform you that your committee come up with their conclusion based on public opinion, and as well as your blessing to finally see where our people standing on this issue after non-visitation for so many years. At this time, I think We have seen their concern, and it's good, Mr. President, and in our next legislative session, I am compelled actually to also introduce an initiative to put out to the people whether we need another constitutional convention delegate to look and review all this constitution provision and amendment that the legislature have gone through initiative, and ensure how do we protect the concern of the people not wanting to vacate Article 12. But it is my vision in the future, Mr. President, that Article 12 will have a natural death. But if we continue to ensure that we want to continue to protect Article 12, then I guess a constitutional convention delegate must come to place to ensure how do we protect Article 12 for the generation to come if natural death is what we envision to happen. So how can we protect this Article 12 for the future generation without seeing its natural fate within the Constitution to provide our Northern Marianas descent to protect their own land. So again, thank you for doing this wake-up call. And now that we realize that our people still want to maintain this constitutional requirement, so we must continue to support their wishes as we are here for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Vico, for your kind words and commitment. This time, the chair recognizes Senator Carl Neighbors.
Thank you, Mr. President. I too would like to echo the same sentiment. I would like to thank you for the opportunity in raising this issue up, as well as the courage to request for it to be filed and understand and listen to the people's concerns. I do know that through this process, so many people in our community, especially the youth, didn't necessarily have an understanding of some of the nuances of what all of this meant. We tend to take for granted that we understand and we tell it to our children, but a lot of these discussions weren't necessarily had and vetted out in the way that they were during the course of our public hearings. So again, thank you for the opportunity. And
thank you, Senator Carl Neighbors. Floor leaders of the recognize.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a request when we are ready to vote that we vote on our roll call.
No objection to that request, floor leader. But before I call for the roll, again, I want to express my appreciation to the committee for your patience and in formulating this. I think earlier I said this is the biggest committee report for today's meeting. So that entails the hearings and testimonials that was provided, both electronically, in the public hearings, and it was never in doubt that it is my intent was to hear the sentiments of the public when I first proposed this, and I knew the sensitivity of it, and that is the reason why I tried to at least be present during those public hearings to hear the true sentiments of those that have express grave concern with regards to the matter before the committee. And with that, utmost respect to every single one of them of all ages, from Saipan to Niana and Anita, for coming out and airing your views with regards to the proposed initiative. I was consistent that I would listen to the sentiment of the public, and that is the reason why he gave me that the decision for me to ask the committee to file it. But I do, as a result of that, I wanted to get into some of the comments as indicated earlier by Senator Victor Hokuk and Senator Carl Neighbors, that as a result of this exercise, there are more discussions with regards to that particular section of our constitution, our unique land tenureship section. And I was encouraging the ones with ideas to not necessarily vote on the initial language of 22-01, but to offer suggestions. So maybe that would compel the members of the committee to consider. But nevertheless, because of this exercise, there was some recommendations now, to say the least, that some of the areas, particularly along Saipan Business District, to reconsider and revisit some of the items that has to do with land ownership and land tenureship. So we'll reserve that comments for later on, as what we are to embark today is to put to rest this legislative initiative 22-01. And I want to thank again everyone for your participation. And we still are committed to hear your recommendations on other matters with respect to the livelihood of our Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, as a lot of our experiences over especially the last 5 years, and most importantly, the last year, when we thought that the economy is going to be rebounding after Sudulor or YouTube, and then we have this experience. And I'm just concerned that our stability with all the public obligations from the government, or of the government to the public, it's important that post all these federal monies that are coming in, that CNMI is ready to address, whether it is retirement pension, bond payments, hospital, schools, and just regular public service programs, that we are prepared for that. And that's the reason why we tap into issues, items that are before us as elected officials in this case, from the legislative, tap into it and allow the community that we represent, allow their sentiments to be heard or to be understood. So with that, usually the chair is the last person to talk, but I see some of the members wanted to chime in, and all of that. Senator Villamor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Going through all the public hearings on all three islands, I have to admit that a lot of it, all of it actually, is quite emotional. I was so happy to see a lot of our people come out and express their feelings about the importance of Article 12. And we also heard some people that are in agreement with changing Article 12 at that time period when we were testifying. When we talk today about Article 12, and futuristically speaking, we have to look into the future, the protection of our generation to come and the current generations. Many of us in this room, we know that perhaps none of us are going to be affected because we are land rich and we are able to manage our finances properly. But the majority of our population are cash poor. And what I'm leading to is, and we talked about this before, Mr. President, the importance of financial literacy. When I came back from California, I'll share my story. I was a young 18-year-old. I worked for Bank of Guam. And at that time period, it was the height of the Tinian land lease. The Tinian land lease. And a lot of people were walking into the bank. I was a teller with U.S. Treasury checks, cashing in the millions. We were labeled as the millionaires of the Pacific when I moved to Guam and lived there for a couple of years. Unfortunately, as we look today, a lot of those time periods when they had the sudden windfall, a lot of those families remain poor today. This is the reason why I am a proponent of financial literacy curriculum in the public school system, and it could also get into the private institutions. It is important because as we move forward, families will continue to either lease out their properties or sell their properties to NMDs. But for as long as we deny our people the financial literacy that they so deserve, so they know how to manage their income properly, we are not going to be doing them any good. We need to do this now. I really urge the education committee, the education sector in our committee, the responsible educators in the community to please put into their curriculum a financial literacy program and start our kids early to know how to manage money properly so that their families can become economically sufficient. And if mom and dad moves on, that the children are able to manage their properties, their monies, if they sell it or lease it to anybody. This would be the greatest gift from any of us to our families in the community. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a short comment, and I agree with you, Mr. President, that during the hearings, many people came forward and gave recommendations. Unfortunately, the main focus was on the initiative was on the removal of the restriction of the alienation of land in the cinema. That was the main focus. But it is my hope that the committee can actually come up with a report on those recommendations, because I am afraid that as of today, we know that there is a new law passed like a year or so ago that actually grants DPAL to lease public land up to 55 years. So all these public lands are being leased out for 55 years, just like the private lands. And in the past, it was just 40 years, and private land was 55 years. So as you know, then there will be a lot of people coming in looking at public lands instead of leasing private land or using private land. And so I think that's a big threat to our people there, right there, because the demand will shift. So that's something that maybe we can extract from these public hearings and use that to come up with a legislative initiative to address that. I like also the provision on this issue about the Northern Marianas Descent Corporation. As you know, your initiative actually restored back the original provision in the first CONCAN, and that was put there by our forefathers because they see an opportunity to use your land as asset to do a joint venture, and that was removed in the second CONCAN. And I think that the compromise for that was to extend the 40 years back then to 55, but that is a provision that a future constitutional convention or a future legislative initiative to look at. So again, I hope that there is some focus on the positive side of the public hearings, the recommendations that were given, other than on just focusing on the removal of the alienation provision. And that's his message.
Thank you, Senator Ponglon. And I believe we flushed out and those great conversations and to and from just within us here in this chamber. So, but I'm also I would be remiss to not mention that also it's a privilege to serve in this very room right here with 3 former members of Constitution or CONCAN members, delegates, and I think you know who you are. I don't need to say no. Yeah. So with the suggestion that Senator Victor Bihocog, perhaps that is the platform that we would seriously consider to revisit some of this, as everywhere else around the region that we have some sort of economic ties, primarily in Asian countries. Everyone else is changing and trying to improve their livelihood, and we need to be mindful of that, and we need to try and be partners of those without compromising our identity and our benefits here for our people. So with that, the chair asks the clerk to call the roll for the adoption of Standing Committee Report 22-21.
Senator Cruz,
Yes.
Senator De Leon Guerrero,
Yes,
Senator Hopewell,
Yes.
Senator Kim Neighbors,
Yes.
Senator Magnolia, Senator Kiruba, Senator Sablan,
No.
Senator Santos. Mr. President,
Yes,
Mr. President, all 9 members voting yes.
9 members voting yes. Standing Committee Report number 22-21 hereby adopted. Thank you. Short recess. Strike that out. Thank you so much for the kids and the family.
Initiative var ortuna initiative, tabii. Ya, tabii.
So we do another initiative and then we break for lunch and come back.
Just the last 2 initiatives, and then we'll go.
Break for lunch and
Yes,
come
I
back.
don't think there's gonna be any comments.
Come back. We'll come back.
Yes.
You said 1:30 or 2 o'clock?
Yeah.
So we'll just flush out the last 2.
Yeah.
So
So-
the initiatives first.
Yeah, and then next, like I say, send to you.
Two more?
Boss?
Yeah, 2 more issues.
June.
11 to 12.
Basically, my condolences. Dando true sentiment.
Ya, se lo dice.
Ay.
Yeah, kahit mali ka na nasa once. No.
We're back into our plenary session, and we're still under item M, under reports of standing committees, and Chair recognizes Florida Sablan.
Thank you, Mr. President. And we can move down to number 11 under reports of standing committees. Our next standing committee report, number 22-26, from your Committee on Judiciary, Government, Law, and Federal Relations, reporting on Senate Legislative Initiative number 22-02 to propose a constitutional amendment to Article 5, Section 4 of the NMI Constitution to require the resident representative to the United States to provide a report to the legislature in a joint session. Mr. President and members, I move for its adoption.
The proper motion offered by the floor leader for the adoption of standing committee report number 22-27. And it's been seconded. Discussion.
Ready for me?
Ready? I recognize, before I recognize anyone, I want to recognize the chairman of the author of the legislation. Senator Hickey.
Since mostly, Mr. President, this initiative is to upgrade or change the title of our resident representative now, delegate to the United States, and also to provide the delegate an opportunity through a formal forum to present to the people of the Commonwealth his report, which shall include his plans and accomplishments through the joint session of the legislature. This is my President.
Thank you, Senator President Kirua, and recognize Senator Paul.
Thank you, President. Commend Senator Kiruba for this initiative. However, I have some concerns with this regard. I was reading the report, and I do not think we afforded the present congressman the opportunity to comment on this legislation, and that concerns me a little bit because while the original constitution requires the Washington representative, the resident representative to the United States, I believe this is now a totally different office. This representative is a member of the United States Congress, our national Congress, and to come up with this legislation, I respectfully ask the committee to get the comment from our congressman. I say this because as a member of the Sinimay legislature, I personally would appreciate also the opportunity to comment if one day the municipality of which I represent requires me to come in every year and report to the municipality. I think that they should at least hear from the incumbent member, and because the concern is also how do we enforce this amendment. I don't know how we can enforce a member of Congress to come and report to us. Well, I totally agree on the issue of hearing from the congressman. Nonetheless, I think we should work with him on this legislation, as this office is not comparable to the non-voting delegate, to the Washington representative that we had prior to this office. So for that reason, that I'm recommending that before we act on this, at least give the opportunity to the congressman. That's all. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Maloney. I would like to recognize the
Thank you.
the chairman.
The comments are duly taken. I do believe that there was solicitation from the representative to the state, but at this point we did not receive I will yield to the chairman of my apologies, the author of this legislative initiative for his.
I'd like to call for services now. Next session, and floor leader, you still on the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President, and after some brief discussions during the recess, I'd like to withdraw my previous motion in adopting standing committee report number 22-26 with the approval of the author to afford the chairman of the committee and members to receive comments from our U.S. delegate before moving on. So,
Second.
The motion is offered by floor leader to withdraw his, the motion he made earlier on standing committee report number 22-26 as stated, and it's been seconded. All those in favor of the motion to withdraw floor leader's motion on standing committee report for the passage or adoption of standing committee report number 22-26, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Floor leader.
thank you, Mr. President. And our last legislative initiative for adoption, number 12, reports of standing committee, standing committee report number 22-27 from your committee on judiciary, government law, and federal relations, reporting on Senate legislative initiative number 22-03 to amend section 10 of article 3 of the Constitution of the Northern Mariana Islands to restrict the governor's emergency power to mobilize available resources to respond to that emergency within the executive branch, but not including the legislative branch, the judicial branch, and autonomous agencies. Mr. President, I move for its adoption.
The motion offered by floor leader to adopt standing committee report number 22-27. We hear a second to that motion.
Second.
Seconded, under discussion. I recognize the chairman of the committee, or correction, the author of the legislation, Vice President Dua.
Since it's was Mr. President, if we adopt this committee report, the initiative will change to Senate Draft 1, which will strike out autonomous agencies. Mr. President, we have gone through these exercises before, and we have seen as a first branch of government how seriously it affected the operations of this branch, but the funding that we're receiving annually is very minute. It's with the judiciary. So giving the governor the authority to exercise his authority when he declares a state of emergency to mobilize all resources within the executive branch where most of the money goes to, I think is very reasonable, so that the legislative branch and the judicial branch can continue to function as are mandated by the Constitution. Ms. Watson, Mr. President.
Thank you, Vice President Tuba. Any other member? Recognize the chair, Senator Carlson, members.
Thank you, Mr. President. For the record, I wanted to say that we did do public hearings on all 3 items. There were, everyone who spoke on behalf of the legislative initiative was in support. There was individuals who wanted to see amendments, but they weren't any specified and articulated. And I share the sentiment of Senator Kidwa in that this is in line with what we need when we need to accomplish in the event of a catastrophe, and funds are being reallocated from this branch as well as the judiciary.
Thank you, Chair. Senator Carl, members. That ready? All those in favor of the motion for the adoption of standing committee report number 22-27, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Standing committee report number 22-27 is adopted. And just for information of the members, there's the consensus that we're gonna go on recess until 2 p.m. this afternoon, as we still have a few more items before us in this session. for today's session. So the chair would like to call a recess until 2 p.m. Today. This afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Report.